Hi everyone and welcome back to another episode of Peaking into Success podcast. This is episode 21. Today we have on a man who is a co-owner in Crawley Town Football Club and is sharing his views and opinions on running the club and what he thinks is happening to the club at the moment. So that's just a bit of a disclaimer on him. So today we have on Hunter Orrell.
The Bless is open every day from 12 p.m, serving a wide range of beers, ciders, real ales and spirits. Their kitchen also provides handmade pizzas, loaded nachos, chicken strips and ice cream from 5:50 to 10:30 Monday to Thursday and 12 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. Friday, Saturday and Sunday. The pub quiz is very popular with anyone that enjoys a good beer and a bit of a laugh with their mates. Taking place every Wednesday at 9 p.m, there's loads of prizes to be won, including £50 drinks vouchers for the winners and a bottle of wine for the best team name. Everyone's a winner. They also have a spacious function room available to hire that can hold up to 100 people. Wow, that's a lot. Perfect for birthday parties, work events, weddings and wakes. The Bless really comes to life at the weekends with their branded nights of Stone Love and Fully Loaded, where the DJs play alternative, indie and rock music spanning the generations until the early hours of 2 a.m. There really is something for everyone in what is arguably Derby's best pub.
Hi Hunter, how are we today?
Doing wonderful. And yourself?
Oh, brilliant, thank you. And it's good with the time differences that we could actually sort this out and have this interview and podcast.
It always makes things a little bit more interesting with the time difference.
100%. So for people that don't know you, how would you sum yourself up in a nutshell to people?
I would describe myself as a serial entrepreneur, investor, advisor, collector of, art and investments and different things. All around, I'm just kind of a guy who looks at the world and kind of sees it through a business lens.
Nice. So kind of the investments, and was it crypto that was your kind of big thing that you've been doing recently? Kind of what kind of investments do you make and kind of what markets do you look at investing in?
Yeah, my business career started actually when I was a freshman. Well, technically it started when I was 8 or 9 years old, doing lemonade at the end of my driveway on a road that not many cars go down, and then cutting grass and shoveling snow off driveways in the winter. My first kind of big jump into the business world in a legitimate way was sophomore year of high school. I sold a software company that was a competitor to Google Maps to another institution. And then I had another hardware company that was product devices for GoPros and lighting industry. And then I kind of went to college and went and got an engineering degree and got a corporate job and found success in the corporate world. But it was in the middle, right before the pandemic, and right in the middle of the pandemic, kind of discovering crypto and NFTs and Web3 and blockchain in a serious way, because I had found it before in 2014, 15 is when I started. I gave it up in 17, and then I came back in end of 2020, and it just kind of clicked. I had a moment where I realized, regardless of the money side, just the technology integration into how it can be used to establish provenance and do trustless and verification of payments and splitting, all these different actual utilities that it allows for. I was like, wow, this is important and it's going to be used, and you should spend some time learning about it. And then obviously the investments started generating money, and there was a monetary side to it. And I was like, all right, let's really dive into that. And that's kind of how I spent the end of 2020 up until, even into today.
Nice. And I mean, what it shows from just talking to you then is that you are a very switched on individual that is just looking to make money and trying to invest in the next thing or the latest thing and trying to push for greatness. That's how it looks like. You're always pushing for success and greatness.
Yeah, I don't think it's the money side. I think it's more of the solving problems. I think that's what actually drove me to be an engineer. I went, got a mechanical engineering degree, and everything to me is reverse engineering problems to find a solution. And for me, it's if I have something that's bugging me or it's causing me issues in my day, or I see it causing other people issues, or a product that I'm like, oh, that sucks, somebody could do that better, or a service. I'm like, well, why don't I just do it? Or like, why don't I find people and we figure out a way to do it better? In the same way, if I see a company that's starting, a marketplace for digital collectibles, and I'm like, oh, these guys have such a unique way of approaching it, and they have a great, background and skill set, and they come from Apple and Instagram, I want to invest in that because instead of me building it, I can be the monetary side to that. Or I have, my own mental capacity of like being able to say, oh, given my background and my expertise, you should do X, Y, and Z, and I can be value add and help them win and, bring really good products to the market.
Nice. So kind of with your business side, before we go into the football side, what are you working on now currently?
So my business side now is a little bit different than I think a lot of people know because I've been very quiet about it. So I still do a little bit of crypto stuff. I'd probably say it's 15% of my weekly time. The rest of it goes into the talent management company that I started with two friends. Both of those two friends have started multi-million-dollar, and one has done several $2 billion companies. So that is something that I put an extraordinary amount of time into right now. And then there's a music label that I'm a co-owner of, so I do a lot in the music industry. And then I still have some of the venture capital investment side. So between the music label and the talent agency, and then actually doing investments in crypto, and then throw in the football club, my week is kind of divided up into sections of like all these different industries, but how do they come together, and how can I leverage one to make the other one do something unique. And then if you even look at the talent agency, like that even kind of serves as its own venture capital and business development company, where that's spinning up its own businesses or doing venture deals to bring products to different creators we work with. So that's kind of what my week looks like. And that's why when people ask me, like, what do you do? I just go, I don't really have an answer. I just kind of have my hands in a lot of different things.
And I mean, with what you've listed off there, that shows that you are not just a co-owner of Crawley. You have many different titles and hats that you have to wear, and you're juggling a lot. So, of course, as we'll get on to now with the whole Crawley Town thing, yes, some fans might think that they're annoyed with the owners for XYZ, but at the end of the day, you are a human being and you have to follow your other ventures which make money to help invest into Crawley, don't you? You can't just stop everything else and focus solely on the football.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, right? You have to definitely understand how you can spend your time best to make everything the most successful it can be. For me, it's how can I build up some of these other businesses to bring opportunities to Crawley that Crawley would never get. It might sound outrageous, and a lot of people, even fans, are going to listen to this and probably be like, well, what, how the hell does music help Crawley Town? But, me going and sitting down with Central C at Spotify in California and discussing, having that conversation around, music and UK culture, and figuring out how artists that I have signed can work together, and figuring out ways to bring, concerts to Crawley, and DJs, and, talking of Snoop Dogg, all these different people. That is impact. If you look on the talent side, figuring out ways to work with the Sidemen, Mr. Beast. I'm not going to name all the American creators because I feel like people are going to hear their names and be like, oh, we don't want them to hear. But like that brings eyes and exposure to Crawley Town that you wouldn't see. And so I think, look at Wrexham. Rob and Ryan have come at this the same exact way. What do they have in their arsenal that they can just, whether it's the gin or the, cell phone providers or the production companies, what do they have as infrastructure to make Wrexham incredibly hard to compete with, because they don't have to financially go out and spend all this money or make these partnerships. They own these companies, they run them. And so, I'm only one person and part of WAGME and Crawley's ownership group. But in my mind, if I want to have impact on the marketing and brand exposure side, which is where, kind of where my role in all this kind of has its boundaries to, I need to be pushing in ways and building my career in ways that do allow for that to happen.
100%. I mean, what it shows, Wrexham kind of had the whole Disney Plus deal, and they kind of had the adverts, but kind of the fans have supported it, whereas the fans aren't supporting you at the moment. And for you, I bet it feels like we are putting effort in, and as you've said, with the promotion and with the music, you are trying to bring more eyes onto Crawley. But why do you think they look at it so differently to your vision and your understanding of what you're trying to bring to the club?
So I think anybody who's listening to this, who's like trying to start a business or, is in the world of starting something with other people, needs to understand that it's very hard when there's, more than 2 or 3 people involved. Once you start getting to, a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen, there's a lot of moving parts, and everybody needs to be on the same page. I think that's probably one of the number one things that I can take away from the last 2 years of doing business in the crypto space, because a lot of these companies and organizations have, maybe between 10 and 50 people in them on average. Just, it's hard. I think when we took over Crawley, there was a really, really strong narrative from the ownership group and a really strong narrative from the organization. And the fans understood, we all understood that this is, inputting capital, bringing exposure to the club, bringing in better infrastructure, better players, getting better kits. Everything's just better. And, regardless of anything else you do, we could have had Mr. Beast come in and, do videos on Crawley every single week and make it the, most viewed club on YouTube, but you have to win games. And, the business of having a football club, in my opinion, can, no matter where you're putting your time and energy into, the number one thing that has to happen for you to find real success is to be winning games. And so I think fan frustration is stemming from, one, the lack of winning. And I think it's also strongly from lack of communication and lack of transparency to, I would say lack of normal transparency. Most clubs would kind of speak and discuss certain things that I think aren't being discussed now. But even when we came in, there was a whole, hey, we're going to be the most transparent club, and we're going to, offer all this. And I think some of the fans are like, well, where is that? I think our hearts and our minds are still in the same place of, this club has to find a way to be successful, has to find a way to bring in a team of players and staff that can win games and can compete for, the playoffs. because last season just, the winning wasn't there.
With, of course, bringing players in and out, I know that, of course, a few players have left this season, and of course you brought a few in. Kind of what's kind of the plan with the players is, of course, some of the players that have gone were some of your best last season. Was that kind of your guys' choice, or was that the players' choice? Do you kind of, as yourself, have a choice in whether players stay or go from the club?
So I personally don't have any say, choice, or like really any knowledge. And I think maybe this is one of those areas where, outsiders looking in, they're like, oh, he's an owner, so he knows everything that's happening and he has a say in everything that's happening. That's, for me personally, my position is, I put money into the club. I am an owner. And my initial kind of say was, look, guys, like, my biggest fear of all of this is that this doesn't go well and we're, a black mark on the club's history. Like, my job is to only say and give, thoughts and opinions and steer the ship where I have expertise. So my expertise is in Web3 and crypto and NFTs. My expertise is in marketing, branding, commercialization, and licensing. And so really, my say in my area that I only really touch is on the content creation, branding, licensing, and commercial, that side of things. I woke up today finding that a player had left by like full surprise again. Like every time a player leaves, it's a huge kind of shock to me. I'm like, oh, didn't know that was coming. And so the chairman and the manager, director of football, like those are the people making those decisions, and I just don't get involved. It would be like, me buying into an airline and being like, all right, well, now that I own this airline, I'm going to go fly the plane. But I've never flown a plane. That's just doesn't make sense.
No, 100%. And that the reason I asked the question was to show that even though you are an owner, you don't properly have a say on everything to do with the club. So when the fans come at you and say, oh, it's the owner's fault, it's not, because, as you've said, you've got no kind of prior knowledge to it. Like you said this morning, you just found out. So
yeah, I think there's like blurred lines there, because you have two chairmen that, are part of the ownership group. The two chairmen were, two guys that were from England, and, let's say everything was the same way happening. I think there would be far less push on the ownership group. And I think there'd still be push, but it would be more like, what do you got? Like, fix the chairman position, or fix this, fix that, instead of like, it is the ownership group causing all this pain. So I think a little bit of that hostileness is coming from people just not understanding who's making decisions and who's involved. I mean, there's a list of people that are named as owners publicly, but some of them are simply investors who just invest and they come to games and they love the club and they want to see it do well, but they're not making decisions. Like it's with any company. Like you have people that are just money, and then you have people that are money and they work, and you have people that just work. And at the end of the day, we still all want the same thing, which is to see success and to see the club do well, because that's where all of our interest is aligned, is seeing the club flourish.
Nice. And I mean, with your role in the club, of course, you brought in the three Brown brothers, Toby, Manny and Jed. And I mean, it was mixed received, but kind of what was your intention with that when you brought in?
That was an interesting one. So that was Jacob Martin, a close friend, another person involved with the club, and I decided to basically find a way to involve larger and larger names. I think it comes down to we are outsiders and we understand that, and we can't come into the UK and just say like, all right, like we're going to Americanize this, or, let's, steal what's working or like what's cool and just like make it our own. Like, I think you have to find ways to integrate in and kind of, share an olive branch and be a friend and be a, co-creator in what's happening in the country. For us, the largest thing that I can see happening in the country from a creation side is the Sidemen. I think Toby and his brothers are just absolutely the nicest and most down-to-earth people. And I think when that opportunity presented itself, it was how many times are you going to have clubs that are willing to let you come train and like just open the doors fully? You'll see premier clubs have people over and it's kind of like a PR stunt. And then it's like, thanks for coming. Thanks for the free views. But you really don't have clubs saying like, look, like we are fans. We think there's opportunity for you to bring value to us. We think there's opportunity to bring value to you by, letting you train, letting you add this to your workout routine. You can make content off of it, whatever you want, to the wild, whatever you really can dream of. That's where our minds were at. And so while some people thought it was just a huge publicity stunt, I think there was a way of kind of saying like, look, like we're trying to be a little bit different here and establish ourselves, in a little different way that might let us have different opportunities, break into doing different content, bring in more creators. In my mind, Crawley Town, I think of Crawley Town as it's a football club, and the other part of it is being almost like a media company where, you're making content, you're making products, you're making things that people think are cool, they want to watch, brands want to come and they want to have their logos on the side of, like, that's a real business. And for clients that I do in the talent agency, and people are like, well, that's not a real business. Like, people look at TikTok and think it's so stupid. And then you find out that a lot of these TikTokers are making between $500,000 and $2 million a year. Pretty much like it's not that hard. And so I kind of look at the football club. I'm like, well, this is a professional football club that has, airtime and has, thousands of fans that show up to games. And it is it's one of 92 teams that a country cares about. And I think that there's a way to take all of that attention and convert it into something that people want to, really want to watch in a unique way. So I think the Sidemen was just kind of a start into that.
100%. And I mean, even if it was received positively or negatively by people,
the kids loved it. I will never forget. I think the Simon charity match was when we had Doncaster away. I remember getting on the train at King's Cross Station, and I remember sitting, like, looking for my train. I couldn't find it. I was freaking out that I was going to miss this game. And the article that we had sent people to the Simon match, the scout had gone out. And I remember my DMs were flooded. People were so mad. The season wasn't still going great. Fans were pretty mad. I got yelled at and shit thrown at me during the game. It was bad, but I will never forget kids coming up to me on the train and being like, "You're a hunter. Like, that's so cool. Like, the Simon thing, you're brilliant." Like, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, this is it. Like, this is where you're going to find that divide of the younger generation gets it. They love it. They think it's cool. And they all know who the team is now. And then you have this older generation who they don't know or care about the Simon, and they're like focused on football. But I think, again, there's two verticals of making a football team truly like a global power, which is winning games, focusing on the football, getting that absolutely right, making sure you have the best manager, the best training staff, physio, getting that perfect. And then on the other side, making sure you have a good media and content. side of things. Every business, this is the big snippet of what we're discussing today. Is my hypothesis is every single business is going to have a content and media arm in the next 5 to 10 years. The fact that I pulled up YouTube the other day and I was looking for something, and there's a construction company in Canada that does YouTube, and I literally thought to myself, if I lived there, this is the company I would use, because the videos were that entertaining and different. It's a construction company. Like, who wants to go on YouTube and watch a construction company? But they're doing the same thing. They do construction super well. They're experts at what they do, but they're also experts at doing, the merchandise that they do and doing the videos that show what they're doing, and they make it entertaining. It's just different. I look at every business the same way today on how are you doing the business stuff well, and then how are you doing your content well.
And that's it. You've rounded it nicely with the kids will focus positively on what your role at the club is, and that you are engaging an untapped market. Is how many kids, before you kind of got involved with kind of doing the Toby, Manny and Jed thing and all of that, how many kids outside of Crawley would have known about Crawley Town?
Yeah,
really?
I mean, there was hundreds of thousands of people that ended up following us that week just because of stuff, right? And so that's significant. Looking back on it, it's one of those things that it really solidified that mentality for me, and it really proved to me that that's kind of like the future of how you have to think about business.
Nice. We're going to steer away from Crawley now, as I think you've answered every question well, and if fans are listening to Crawley Town, they should understand that your role of the club and what you actually can control within Crawley Town, and hopefully understand better of how the ownership model works. So we'll come back to the life of Hunter now and look at your career high. So what's one moment in your career so far that you think is the highest point?
Oh man, that's a hard question. The joke in my family, I'm super close to my brother. I'm super close to my parents. We all kind of discuss the craziness of the last 3 years pretty often. There's been so many moments that I've looked at and just been like, what the hell is happening? Like, how did I end up here? I think I'll give you like a couple just to like maybe put it into perspective. I think winning against Fulham, that was a moment where it didn't hit me for like 2 or 3 days. It was kind of crazy. Like, I was excited. I lost my mind. Like, to see in the field get run on, and to have Simon Jordan or what first name is yelling about me on his podcast or whatever he does, and them calling me Gormless online. Like, that was a pretty high moment for me, where I was just like, wow, like so many things had to go right to get to this moment, and to see. I was more just happy to see everybody happy. That was a pretty high moment for me. Financially, there's a moment where I had probably like $10,000, $15,000 left in my bank account at one point, and I took $8,000 of it, and I found a random person on the internet who loaned me another $8,000, and I bought a art piece. So I bought an art piece for $16,000, and at this point, I had a girlfriend, and I had, I still had like obligations and stuff. And so I put myself in a position where like going out to dinner was like stressful for me. And so I ended up buying this art piece for $16,000, and a couple months later, I ended up selling that for almost $600,000. And I remember sitting at my corporate job in my like little cubicle area, negotiating this sale. I had my work phone on one year and my personal phone on another year. I'm like negotiating with one guy who's in Dubai and the other guy's in California, and I was in the East Coast here, in America. And I'm like, we're all negotiating rates, and like the money hit, and I remember just standing up and being like, all right, like I'm going home. It was like 2 p.m. I still had like 3 more hours of work. I just stood up and went home. And I remember sitting there. I remember like trying to like drive out of the parking lot. My hands were still shaking, because I realized that I had really put it like all on the line, and like things were starting to like work out. And that opened up so many doors for me. Those are definitely two big moments for me.
Nice. Is there a defining moment for you, or would you say that the art piece is kind of a defining moment with you due to the money that it brought in for you and changed kind of your financial presence?
I don't know if that moment, a lot happened in like a couple weeks at that point, because I ended up quitting my job not too far after. I think that was like a critical moment. A lot of things would not have happened if that hadn't happened. I think I started making content in the like the Web3 space. I think that first video I posted was a defining moment, because not many people showed their faces or talked or were, charismatic, and had like good intentions in the space. And for me to do that, I think it kind of allowed me to get to this point of like, the only reason I was able to buy that art piece is that I got invited to a dinner in LA with like 2 hours notice. So I hopped on a plane from New York and like a family get together thing, and, ditched that to go to this dinner. But the only reason I got invited to that was because this guy found a video of mine. Like, I think it kind of all starts from there, was just being very public, and having like a persona in the space.
Nice. So we'll kind of go to your younger self and maybe take it back to 6 or 7, where you said you were doing the lemonade stand. If you went back to him, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to him?
Man, I think one of the areas that me as my younger self, I wish I could go back and tell myself, is that you just gotta be okay being you. I don't think I've ever really, I don't think I'd give myself business advice. I think I'd just give myself like just life advice. Like, you just gotta be you. I definitely I didn't have the greatest middle school, high school experience. And I think I thought a lot about how to make people like me and how to fit in, or like how to be cool. And I don't think it was really until like my senior year of high school, I just kind of did what I wanted to do and owned it. And I was like, if you don't like it, fuck you. And I wish I had learned that earlier. And I think a lot of people today look, especially with everything online, I think a lot of people look at, how many followers other people have, how much money are people making, what are they wearing, where are they traveling to. They look and compare themselves, and they think about what other people view them as, instead of really just being comfortable with themselves. I think that's something that we need to instill in kids at a much younger age, and it's something that I wish I had gotten through my head. I know my parents told me this, but I wish I myself could just, get it through my thick skull at an earlier age.
No, that's nice. And I think how you've mentioned that children of today should feel the same way as well, and kind of notice things earlier, is of course we all kind of let things pass by, and then as we reminisce, we notice that. So it's nice that you kind of, if you could go back, you'd kind of try and notice things and try and push yourself more at an earlier age. Now I've got kind of 2 questions to just finish off with. Firstly is, what is your gem of Crawley? So you've been there a couple of times, of course you go to some of the games and stuff. What's your gem of Crawley? So when you go there, what's the one thing that kind of captures you and like a place maybe that you always go to apart from the stadium?
The number one thing I look forward to when I go back now, which like actually made me so kind of like thrilled to be there the first time I went and visited, was the turf field across from the stadium. Is just going to that field, because I'm 28 and I oftentimes forget that, but it's something around the sport of football that the second I put boots on, the second I step onto a field, I go back to being like a 13-year-old kid. Like, I think it was just the hanging out with the kids on the turf field and playing and shooting and playing, 5v5 and short side, like that, and seeing how excited the kids were and seeing how excited the kids were, like meet somebody who like was involved with the club. That kind of made me fall in love with the town. Just I'm sure everybody's gonna be like, oh, you can find that anywhere, but it was a special moment. And to see, I think, a town that, Gatwick's right there, and there's so much opportunity to bring infrastructure to the town. I think, we can bring so much stuff to the town. I just, that right there solidified kind of me wanting to show these kids, like, all right, like, let's figure out how to get you more involved. Let's figure out how to, demonstrate better equality in the town, give better opportunity. And to me, Crawley Town is family. I think of it as like a family thing instead of like, that's like where my head goes first, instead of like, hey, this is like a business venture. It's like, how can I make, John, who's a, fan, one of, 10,000 people who have come to a game over the last year, how can I make him happier? And how can I make him prouder to live in Crawley and prouder to like root for the team? I think about that for every single fan. So I think for me, it's kind of just like, it feels like family, even though right now it's like very hostile. And I think a lot of people, if I showed up, would not be thrilled to see me. And I don't think they'd have like kind things to say, but I've got thick skin. I'm happy to look past that to keep trying to find a way to make them happy.
Nice. And I think that just is come across talking to you for this past 35 minutes or so, that it shows that your intentions are good and you do mean the best. They're just misunderstood, and there's just a massive misunderstanding there, which is a shame. And hopefully over time that does change.
I hope so.
Kind of my last thing to ask you is, what is your prediction for the club for this upcoming season?
I think this season is going to be very interesting, because if we have to look at what's happened the last couple months, right? Like, we've had a lot of departures, we've had a lot of new people come in. And granted, I'm also going to say this right after we played Crystal Palace, and that was a 0-4 loss again, but it's Crystal Palace. I think this season's going to take a second, but I think with everybody kind of being on the same page, from manager to chairman to players, everybody kind of having a mentality of like, we are going to play a certain way, we're going to have a certain style, we're looking for certain players. I think that we'll have a better season. I think we'll certainly finish in a higher position than we did last season. But I do think that where a lot of people are upset because we've lost older players, and I'm personally sad to see a lot of them go, because I look at them as friends. Like, I go to training. They actually tell me to get off the training field sometimes, because like they'll be doing drills and I'll be like, yo, can I get in? Like, they're like, get off the field. And like, even after training, like, I'll go around and I'll shoot on the goals, or like Corey will be in goal, and like I'll be shooting, and like we're friends. Like, it's sad to see these guys go, because I have those memories. I remember winning, them winning games or scoring goals or those special, at Bradford when Tilly scored that goal. There's like a video of me like losing my mind. My glasses came off. I stepped on them. I broke my phone. Like, it was a whole thing. I'm like running up and down the stairs, and then to watch players depart, or like to watch like that moment there is like a moment that I will always cherish. And Jake departing, like there's moments of games where I remember watching him, screaming, like cheering for him, and like the scene departs, like losing a friend. It's hard, but I think now with all the new guys that we have coming in, that we kind of have this new unknown, and people have to understand that with this change, hopefully there is a change in playing. Again, we want the best to happen. The decisions are obviously being made with the best intentions in mind.
Right, so thank you for coming on today, Hunter, and kind of giving the owner's side and your role to Crawley, and kind of giving fans, if they're listening to this, kind of your side, and hopefully humanising you and showing that your intentions are good with the club. And I feel like with everything you said, that definitely comes across. So where would people be able to find you on social media, or, for example, anything to do with the club?
Well, first, thank you for having me on. I always appreciate a conversation like this, and your questions were amazing. You can find me pretty much anywhere. It's just Hunter Orrell, at Hunter Orrell, or the username is Hunter Orrell. And yeah, I look at DMs occasionally. I'm pretty busy. The last couple of weeks have been busy. So if you ever want to chat or talk, hit me up there. And yeah, everything from YouTube, Twitter, to TikTok, to Instagram, I'm on everything.
Brilliant. No, thank you for coming on, and I feel like you did well at answering the question, so thanks.
Thank you so much.
Want to know what's happening within Derby's black community? Or perhaps you have a story of your own to share? Then look no further than Majatu, your one-stop source for local African and Caribbean news. With our digital news platform and quarterly print magazine, keep up to date on all of the latest in arts, entertainment, food, sports, and more. Find us online at mojatu.com.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Peaking to Success podcast. If you enjoyed, please make sure you follow us on Spotify as well as Instagram, where you can see all the updates of who is coming up, as well as who has already been on the podcast, as well as Twitter, where there is information and interaction from me on there as well. Thank you.